Minasan konnichiwa. I hope all of you are doing well in your quarantine for coronavirus. But for those of you who haven't, my condolences, and I hope things get better. There's nothing much I can do for you, but we'll keep doing our content. Well, today we have an interesting character, interesting topic. Given the contemporary scholarly and religious environment of Freud, his work that contributed significantly and triggered a new perspective in the field of psychology is considered by many as a monumental shift in the way we thought psychology. Now, many consider him a revolutionary, a maverick, a renegade, and some of them even call him a charlatan. But his impact is undeniable. Freud might be the most famous psychologist of the last century. So today, to continue our exploration and develop our common perspective, we have her in-house evolutionary maverick, renegade, and charlatan, Chintan Bhatt.
Sigmund Freud.
How are you doing, Chintan?
Good. I think this guy is a super interesting and controversial guy. So.
Right, he is very controversial, very impact. I suspect most listeners already know a lot about him and have heard of him.
Yeah.
But I do believe also there'll be a lot who haven't. So for those who have, it should be an interesting discussion because a lot of this, we're not experts in the field. And that's something actually I thought about last week, and this week we should get into Chintan. Mm-hmm. Do we want to talk for a few minutes about why we do this now?
Yeah, sure.
Like why? So yeah, let's do that. I mean, I thought we'd do this. We should have. It's something we didn't discuss before the video, but I remembered it last week. We want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So what it is actually this whole process for the listeners. This whole process is one for us to learn. We're interested in so many topics across the world, across different fields, across various domains. And me and Chintan, since our college, since we've met, all we've been is talking and randomly talking about it, world politics and a lot of other things. And more than us trying to educate our listeners, this is primarily an attempt to learn ourselves. Wouldn't you agree, Chintan?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why, I mean, the listeners probably know that already. I mean, if they have been listening to us, that we are no experts in these fields.
I doubt there's any listener who doubts that. I mean, I'm sure they realize that already. But
yeah.
Go on.
I mean, everything is like pretty much new. Like this topic is entirely new for me. For you at least, it's a little. I mean, you knew a little bit at least. For me, like I had no idea I didn't know anything about him or psychoanalysis or like any of the topics related to all these. Right. Although I was pretty interested in like psychology in general, but that is just probably everyone probably likes psychology that way. So
possibly, yep. No, that's probably. And generally, I've read a little more than Chintan, in most things, so it's okay. Goes without saying. Sure. No, I'm just kidding, but we'll see. We'll probably find topics eventually that you've read more. But let's get on with it then for the audience. So yeah, let's see. Hopefully you guys like it. We want to engage with discussions with you guys. We'd love to discuss with more people than just get our perspectives. And yeah, the more people, the faster and the more accurately we learn, I believe, and a lot more fruitful this exercise will be. So, right. What's first? Psychoanalysis. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this word. It's from our understanding, from what little research we've done, is it's the process. I should say from my understanding, it's a process that Freud developed to treat people with psychological conditions. Is that the right way to put it, Chintan? That's not a bad way to summarize it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fine. I mean,
accurate, right. So specifically, what he'd do is, you see that photo? That's a very famous photo. I think it's a photo of his bed that he actually used, and even today, somewhere in Germany, it's been well maintained and protected from general.
The bed that he used for like his patients, I think.
Right. So what was that process like? What would he do?
I mean, it's probably what you see on TV and shows and everything, that they just make people lie down and ask about their thoughts and everything.
Right. So, right. And I think he made a point to sit behind the bed or something, right? Because I guess that would be distracting if they looked at the face of the psychoanalyst.
I guess.
Right?
I'm not too sure of that. I don't know.
In the TV show, they mention it, right? They show him sitting behind the... I don't know if you remember, but for our viewers, we watched a show on Netflix about Freud. It doesn't have much to do with his science, but it's, I think, about his personality and his character and what kind of
It
person he was.
it seemed I mean the show. I mean it got a lot of. I was reading some reviews and all on Reddit. It got some hatred, but it was not too bad. I thought it was. I mean, obviously, if you're looking for psychoanalysis concepts and everything, it's. I mean,
Right.
it's nowhere close. It doesn't have
Unrealistic. Yeah.
much at all. It's mainly
Right.
probably one case study that kind of was his breakthrough or something that got him even more interested and made him write all those books. I'm guessing. It's kind of like
Right.
that, I guess, like an origin story kind of thing.
Right. You're talking about the hypnosis and his study on that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. That they show in the
I
TV
mean, in
show.
the
Right.
show, he's not yet like this well-known guy who
Of course, he's
he's still,
nobody.
yeah,
He's a charlatan, like I said. Most of them think he's a fake guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
yeah, yeah,
It's full of shit.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
so right. And one more thing, right? In that show, I remember specifically in the ending when he's starting, they show the birth of psychoanalysis and his process. They specifically mention he had to sit behind the
Right,
patient. I
right,
think it was to avoid, even in modern days, they're sitting away, right? They're at the sofa or a chair somewhere. It's to avoid their face or their presence
right.
from distracting the patient.
I
But
see.
yeah, so I think in a gist, it's basically they talk about their thoughts, their innermost thoughts, and he tries to uh, let's say manufacture the conditions such that they feel comfortable, and they don't, in a way that he tries to hypnotize them also,
Yeah,
so that they get deep into thought and they reveal that their innermost problems, fears, angers, inhibitions, you name it.
yeah,
And yeah, you guys should look it up. So, like always, most of our sources are on Wikipedia, and you guys should look it up. Read it up. We read it, but
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
that's
also another thing to mention, like if the
uh,
show is if you're more interested in like shows which has
oh,
psychoanalysis and more like I don't know all these
technical and
yeah
scientifically consistent. Let's say,
interrogations
yeah.
and stuff. Like I think Mindhunter and Unabomber and all are much better shows which actually show like the process much better.
Oh,
And I think
Mindhunter for sure.
yeah,
Mindhunter for
and I
sure.
think Lie to Me also. People were saying like Lie to
Like
Me.
to me, it's interesting. I don't know if it's
I haven't watched much of it, but people were suggesting that on Reddit. So
okay, so I'm a sucker for dialogues and characters and all that, right? Irrespective of what, and I think a lot of people will be.
right,
So it's one of the best character, and it's a brilliant concept. The whole idea is they can judge a person's, whether a person is lying or not based on just their appearances and their their gestures and their
right,
facial expressions and so on. So these guys are expert in training. I don't know the scientific validity of the process.
yeah,
I'd imagine there's some truth to it,
yeah.
so eyes dilation and all that we have, but it's not
I mean,
it's a
just like even psychoanalysis is not entirely. I mean, it doesn't work on everyone, right?
right.
So I guess
Right.
that way,
Might have a point. You might have a point there. And right. Another thing I just say, maybe it's an exaggeration of the ability, but who knows? I get exactly like you said. Hypnosis itself, we don't know the true extent. I mean,
yeah,
like we were talking a few days ago, we don't know if we'll ever get hypnotized. At least
yeah.
I don't
Like
think I could be, but we never know.
I mean, people say you need to believe in it also to some extent for it to work on you, and I don't know. It's I guess it kind of makes sense. I guess because but people. I mean, I do believe that it works, but yeah, I don't know if it'll work on us or not and stuff. But
Right,
probably
exactly.
doesn't
Same.
work on
I
everyone.
think I have the same opinion. I feel they might have some impact on some people, but yeah, I'm not sure about whether we understand what the conditions are, what the characteristic traits a person has to have in order to be hypnotized.
Right.
Does that make sense? Right, no. But maybe we do. I don't know. But
Yeah.
who knows? So right, that's psychoanalysis, and we should probably get on with what his some of his important works and important theories that he contributed to the field. A disclaimer that a lot of this is controversial and a lot of this is some of it considered pseudoscience. It's not even realistic. There's a lot of debates and arguments on how relevant most of these are.
Yeah.
But like I said in my intro, he started this line of thinking, a lot more in-depth analysis and deep psychological impacts and effects. And I'm hoping that as we explain some of these concepts he created, you'd see its influence in current day psychology.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right? So what do we know by id, ego, and superego, Chint?
I mean, I
What little do we know?
for me, I watched a really good like a few really good videos on YouTube. Like for example,
Right.
Crash Course has this Crash Course Psychology video
The best.
where they
The best.
explain
Get the brain.
yeah, where they explain id, ego, and super ego pretty well, I thought.
Right. Right.
And it was mainly like them considering like an iceberg where the bottom part, it being the unconscious part, so it
Right.
probably like consists of all kinds of your desires and everything which you don't even know about, but it might still
Right.
exist. And
Right.
not just that, even the stuff that you know about, but it'll all be there, like all your, I guess.
In a sense, it's natural. I guess it comes from your birth. It's not developed through environment, something like that.
Yeah,
That's
I guess.
was what I understood. I don't know.
Yeah,
They don't use
maybe
those words, but yeah.
none of the filters, no society influence, nothing
Right.
being there.
Correct. 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 We're born with it, or
Yeah.
we inherit it maybe from our parents, right?
Yes, like superego is
Possibly.
pretty
Yeah.
much the opposite of that, I think. Um, like
Okay.
with all kinds of rules and
Right.
society and you doing the right thing. It's all about the right thing and
Right.
such things. And
Right.
they both kind of are uh, like against each other, superego and id, and they are
Right. They work
maintained by
against each other.
ego. Yeah,
Correct.
work against each other, and they are like
Right.
kind of maintained and handled by ego, I
Super
guess.
against each other. It's like some rivals or some
Yeah,
superhero rival story you're describing.
yeah,
But yeah. Okay.
yeah. And ego kind of maintains them and is like a mediator between them, and
Right.
I guess the sane, like we, it keeps us sane, and whatever we are is ego, I guess.
Right.
So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To
I mean,
paraphrase how would I
sane being whatever level of sane or insane you are.
right. Right.
So ego,
Sorry?
I mean,
Say that
sane,
again?
like being you, whatever level of sane or insane you are. Like for example, a
Yeah. Correct. Okay.
psycho
Okay.
killer would
I get
still
it.
have ego, but that ego is much more worse than I mean, worse being used. I don't know.
Right.
Uh,
Dan?
than I don't know, them being more towards it, I guess. Like
Right. Right. Right.
some
Okay.
serial killer or
Correct. I get what you're
psychotic.
saying. I'm basically going to paraphrase what you said and what I understood. It was very similar to what you said. It like this unconscious, and I think what you're saying is serial killer thing is they're influenced by their instincts, right? You
Yeah,
act on instinct,
yeah,
right? Like whether it's instincts of sex or instincts of violence or whatever it is, instincts of whatever desire, and that usually results in inappropriate behavior in society, maybe something like that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so we're
That
saying in a serial
again, we are assuming that that all comes from our id. So
yeah, exactly. Given Freud was right,
yeah,
given this all assuming he was right. So I guess what you're saying in serial killer sense is he would be a lot worse if he was acting on instincts and wasn't maybe moderated or regulated by the ego to
yeah,
some extent, right?
yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. That makes sense. And I think one more thing I'll add is in the superego. One thing he said, yeah. So he mentions how this has to do. Maybe you should open the Wikipedia page. It happens to do. It has to do with. He doesn't mention it, but he. I guess he hints at your moral code.
right.
As I say this, I'm thinking if they mentioned all this in Dexter, it sounds like they would have, because he talks about moral code and stuff. I don't know. Which is it? You've seen Dexter, right?
Yeah,
Fully?
I have, but quite a
I
long time
haven't.
ago.
I saw random episodes. I saw the first season. I think probably because of your recommendation only. You were like crazy behind that show, right? It was your favorite show at the point.
No, no, not really.
Who was
I
it then?
even
Not
skipped
you?
a season even because I didn't find it
Maybe it was
interesting.
another friend of ours. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
And
remember.
everyone
But
hated the last season also. You know that, right? It was
the finale was is Game of Thrones esque.
yeah, exactly.
The contemporary adjective, right? So,
Exactly.
but let's see. It reflects the internalization of cultural roles. So that's the thing, right? We get a morality usually from society and culture, right? And
Yeah.
these are almost arbitrary roles, not arbitrary in the sense that society decides them. We didn't decide them, and they had a process of evolution and stuff like that. But logically, it's arbitrary. You could argue against the necessity or why our brain needs to follow these rules. It probably has to do with survival and self benefits and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right, so I think this leads to the moral code, and he mentions in this. I don't know if he mentions it, but the Wikipedia page mentions that yeah, we get our super ego developed from our parents' super ego.
Right.
So yeah, again, so this is probably the unnatural bits of it. So
I
this
mean,
maybe has a environmental influence, right?
like
In
initially, maybe like you're saying genetically from parents, you're saying.
No, I'm saying environment externally.
But externally, like initially, you are with your parents all the time, right? So I mean,
Yeah, so
there has
but that's
to. I mean, I'm sure a little part of it will come from parents.
no,
And
he's saying a big part of it comes from parents. That's what I was saying.
I mean, I can see that too. Like maybe like initially
Exactly.
itself, if you're
Yeah,
seeing some kind of, I don't know, domestic violence or some fightings and everything, that could influence you in a big way, right?
of course. I'm in agreement. I might have given the impression otherwise, but I am in agreement with you, and that's why I guess this made sense. And he right. No, I was just trying to say that this is probably what you were saying, that we got naturally, or what's he said in id, right? You were saying id
Right.
we got naturally,
Yeah.
and we got it, and this is a key difference, right? Here we're getting it from the environment, from the
Right.
parents. So if you had different parents, you'd be like you said. If you had some sexual abuse as a child
Right.
or physical abuse, you might turn out differently, and that would form or build your moral compass.
Right.
To use the video I saw, but so that's super ego. Now, I think one thing I didn't understand. So the unconscious we understand,
Yeah.
things we don't have conscious of. Maybe when we're sleeping, maybe things like the automatic state, right?
Yeah. I
Where
think,
we
but
don't,
the
yeah, the
unconscious state.
autopilot.
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe it's always there, even if you're not asleep.
Right, right, right. That's the thing. Like, how do we? I mean, I don't know if you can think of it. It's definitely outside our today's syllabus, but to put it one way. But I'm just wondering if there's a way we can. Is there anything in daily life that is portrayed that our unconscious minds,
I mean,
you know,
maybe something you act out of your instincts, kind of thing.
is it that like how?
I mean,
Yeah. So okay. I mean, I'm going back to Freud, and in a way, because again, I think it comes back to sex. I guess your reaction and when before you have sex or during the moment could
yeah,
be a.
yeah,
Is that unconscious? So yeah, I guess there's a myth. I guess there are moments when you're unconscious for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Or violence for that matter.
yeah, for
Let's say
sure.
you're gonna fight,
Exactly.
which I'm sure you have no experience of,
No.
given the too decent fellow you are and
What?
your averseness towards
What?
adversity towards violence. But yeah. You say what like we're surprised, but yeah, given how you wouldn't lift a finger
Sure, sure.
to fight, but yeah, not that you can't, but I'd imagine you never would. But
Yeah,
in
but
my experience, in my limited experience of getting beat up, I could imagine anger. I can't imagine, there'd be moments I can't remember, maybe. If I think about it, you won't remember certain details in the fight.
yeah, for sure.
But when I think about it, it might be even the other. I remember more, maybe. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Psychology, too complex. But right, so that's super. So unconscious, I get conscious to some extent. We talking, our deliberate thinking, what's happening now,
Mm-hmm.
and I get that, but I don't know if I understand what pre-conscious is. Any idea? Maybe we can Google it if you don't know either.
I'm not that sure, but in this, that's what they mention it here. Like, I
Yeah.
guess it's somewhere in between those things, like where, as you said, like in your fighting example again, like
Yeah.
that maybe that's the part where you kind of realize that you are doing wrong or something like that. I don't know.
That's right.
So
Right.
I mean, I'm guessing it is all guessing, so I have no idea.
Right. It makes sense. I don't know. I can't imagine two states. It's all the system two, system one thing, which we'll talk about towards the ending. But I guess that's
In psychoanalysis, preconscious is the loci preceding consciousness. Thoughts
okay.
are preconscious when they are unconscious at a particular moment, but not repressed. Okay.
Thoughts are pre-conscious when they are unconscious at a. Oh, okay. Wait, okay, so we know what repressed thoughts is, right? So that's for the listeners, that's probably something we should also mention. So Freud had this thing that we had a lot of inner feelings that are repressed, and it's commonly used in today's dialogue in politics or whatever it is, right? They say, for example, homosexuality, when people speak against it, people talk about how it's repressed feelings and they're coming out in ways, and that's why you're so much against it, because you have this repressed desire for homosexuality, right?
Yeah.
Chintan, you probably heard something like
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, or something like, and sexuality, when they talk about like popes that go on this mass pedophilic rampage,
Right.
and they say it's because of their teachings of, repressing their sexual desires and stuff like that.
Right, right,
So viewers, I mean, I'm saying, I would imagine the stem of these ideas of repression comes from freud's freud's teachings and Freud's discoveries. But so we know what repressed feelings is, where you, I mean, I'll put it and tell me if you agree with me, Chintan. From my understanding, what repressed feelings are is, if I have a feeling or urge natural, let's say it generates something, I try to train myself and force myself to stop thinking that way, and it becomes unconscious eventually, because I've trained myself so much
Yeah, yeah.
that sometimes I don't even realize it's natural to me. For example, let's say okay, let's get dark. Let's say pedophilia. I have pedophilic urges and I want to do it,
Yeah.
and then eventually I just train myself not to,
Yeah. Just
and then
saying,
eventually
telling
it never
yourself that
happens.
it's the wrong thing, wrong thing.
Right.
So.
I just force myself. I keep banging myself. Maybe I could go excessive and whack myself, like some rituals they had where they'd hit themselves.
Yeah.
And eventually, what happens is, maybe whenever I see a child, those thoughts barely come.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess what the repercussion of that is, that eventually it just blows up, and it's uncontrollable at some point, right? That's the negative effect of repressing. I
Yeah.
think that's the Freudian way of looking at things.
Yeah, that might be right. Yeah.
That might be the case, right? So, what could preconscious mean? So we know what repressed is. We know what the other unconscious means to some extent. So he's saying thoughts are preconscious when they are unconscious at a particular moment. I guess, yeah, if but are not repressed. Okay. Right. So thoughts which you have never thought of before. You know what? If I had to guess, okay, we don't have to research it now. Maybe we should have done it before the video. But if I had to guess, it's probably like some before the first fight I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember like Joe Rogan was talking to this UFC girl, and she was telling how she doesn't like guys who when they're getting beat up, right, before the fight is going to end and they're getting beat up. I don't know if you saw this video or this clip. She's like, I hate those guys who try to block and they try to head their height and they duck and they kind of shoo away, they run away. He thinks that's such an unmanly thing. That's how she describes it.
Okay.
And in their defense, Joe Rogan says maybe that's what they needed. They needed to experience that bashing up to realize how to act in those situations, right? Maybe because they've never experienced something like before.
Right.
It's a new experience. So it's not repressed, but it's something they've never experienced before. And it exists.
Okay.
It's unconscious.
Right. So there's a very good,
Yeah.
like, the other common forms of preconscious processing are tip of the tongue phenomena. So
Okay.
tip of the tongue
Right.
and blind sight, apparently.
Right. So if I had to bring it back to this example,
Yeah.
it's your first reflex or response to a new situation.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
he's never been in that situation. That's what Joe Rogan was saying, even though he probably didn't read Freud. He might have, given how much he's read. But maybe it's that. And it sounds, now that you mentioned this sentence, it might be more accurate. I feel like it's more correct. But right. So that's preconscious. And ego, right? So ego they describe as something that moderates between, like you said, these two fighting, Batman versus Superman, right? He's the referee or the modulator. Okay. Right. But it's a little weird how the word evolved, right? Today we consider ego to be something along the lines of stubbornness or arrogance, right?
Yeah.
Right. I wonder how that came about. Maybe we should another study on that we can do, how that word was traced. But that's all right.
Like, you're
So,
getting back
right.
to that, the thing about you mentioned how kids can like get influenced by the parents' topic, right?
Yeah.
So there is this video that I watched. It's called
Yeah.
Freud's Theory of Thinking. It's by this
Right.
channel called Berlin Psychoanalytic.
Right.
Here, this guy just talks about how we start thinking, basically. So we like as a
Okay.
baby, we probably,
Like any thought we have. Oh, okay. As a baby, right?
yeah, as a baby,
Right.
when you're born, you probably don't really think
Don't
too
think.
much.
Right.
Like, you
Right.
probably don't think at all. It's mainly physical desires that you have. Like, for
Right.
example, when you're hungry or you're cold or something, you just cry, I guess.
Or yeah, I remember Freud reading this. Your nip. What do you call it? Nipple milk. You want to suck on the nipple.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Go on.
So that's what, like, you just kind of have these physical instincts. So you
Right.
and then what happens is, you get hungry, and then you again you kind of cry, I guess. But there is this time between when you're hungry and then you give out signs that you're kind of crying, I guess. And then there is this gap between that and when your mom actually gives you like milk or whatever, or
Okay.
let's say wraps you up in a blanket when you're cold or whatever, right? So that
Right.
gap kind of becomes like this thinking part, or this
Oh.
learning part of you, where
Right.
where you just expect this thing from the outside world. So that kind of makes you start thinking, I guess. I mean, maybe
Right.
I'm understanding it kind of wrong
It's
also, but
You might be, but from what you're saying, what I understand is you're saying it's a sort of it's a strategic move. Eventually, you start realizing that your crying gets you what you want, and you start crying
yeah, but the
non-instinctual.
thing is, you don't get it right away, right? As soon as you cry, you don't
Right.
really get this thing. But there is
Sure.
this gap, this time gap between when you cry and you get your milk. So
Right.
that kind of
And
you just
right.
experience through that
Right.
in the world. And then as
Interesting.
you grow up, you also start thinking about, I guess you also start thinking about others' thoughts as well, like how they are not always available. How you could also think about why that delay is there. So you start, I guess, thinking about the other person as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then
Oh, okay. I see. Right.
yeah, and
I
then
guess the thoughts are becoming a lot more complex than your basic instinctual thoughts,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, I
Right.
mean
Right.
that's
Right.
kind of where you begin with the thinking. I guess it's much more
Sure.
better explained by this guy, and
Of
it's
course.
more
I don't doubt it.
detailed as well in this. So
Right.
you should definitely check
I
this out.
haven't watched it. I might watch this too. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
In
it's
fact, I suspect all the links you have today I haven't watched, so we'll
yeah, it's
see.
like this channel is also really good. Like this channel is it's
Yeah.
called Berlin Psychoanalytic. It's I guess more little more technical and stuff, and it has
Right.
like these case studies and everything from Freud
Right.
and other people.
Right.
Like they just
Well,
discuss whatever
right.
the cases they had and everything. So
Right.
it seems, I mean, I haven't looked too much into it, but it seems kind of nice.
I suspect it will be. I'm sure. I feel like you're right. Yeah. That's cool.
But
Right. So Right, so that's ego and super ego, at least a small introduction or our idea of it. For those of you interested, you should definitely look it up. It's a widely popular subject. I imagine it's relevant even today. It's accepted models. I don't know because psychology keeps changing frequently, but yeah, maybe some of you can relate to it, right? And I think you can. I can too. Some of
what,
it,
the
like
id
you said, the
ego,
instinct.
super ego part?
Yeah, ego, super
I
ego
mean,
part.
that I think everyone has that. I'm sure.
Right. I can't understand the role of ego properly. I mean, I can't differentiate. It's easier for me because I guess my lack of understanding of pre-conscious properly or ego itself. I don't know. But I'm just saying naturally, I can't feel like there's a third state I have. Maybe it has to do with
I
that
mean,
system on
like you
system.
could maybe just, I mean, it part you do understand, right? Entirely, like it
Right.
part, yeah.
So
But
yeah.
superego maybe is something that something the society tells you, but you don't agree with. I mean, I mean, the society tells you, but ego tells you that you shouldn't agree with
Right.
it. I
Right.
guess
So it's your like an independent thoughts or something like that. Maybe.
maybe I guess so. I don't know.
So I'll tell you why I'm confusing it. I didn't think I should bring it up. Let's bring it up anyways. So we have the today's model by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, right? System one, system two.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put in that framework, it fits very well with system one. Super ego fits. No, ego, super ego together maybe fits with system two. You get what I'm saying? It fits with super system one, right? If you remember the model, do you?
No, I don't.
Right. So system one is again everything that happens instinctual.
Right,
And right,
right,
your things that have instinct, like driving a car, you don't need to think too much about it, right? Your
right,
response, your reflexes, stuff like that.
right.
Your deliberate and forced. What do they call it? Your forced thinking, your deliberate thought is your system two,
It
where you
kind
take a
of
moment,
works
right?
through your subconscious, right? The system one, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it does
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
By our understanding subconscious, it works through subconscious. That's right. That's my point. That's why it's so similar to it. And here's where it gets complex because deliberate thinking is ego super ego also requires some deliberate thinking, right? You have to analyze what the moral values are,
Mm-hmm.
and you make a logical discussion, a decision, or whatever it is, you know. So I'm just a little confused. If but maybe it makes sense, especially the modulating part. But we'll have to see. It's
Yeah.
something I haven't explored. Yeah. Just I mean, I was just trying to explain why my confusion comes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So what else? What else has Freud contributed to our world?
Maybe you
That
want to
is
talk
well,
about
it was complex.
Oedipus complex.
Right. So what this is bizarre. For those of you who have never heard of it, it's bizarre. And when's the first time you heard of this Chinta? I think we talked about it like last month, maybe last few days ago. Did you know about it before?
No, I didn't know about it. I came to know through these videos only about
But
it.
this through studying for this video. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay. So how bizarre is it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, but so okay, there are multiple thoughts that come to my head when I think of this. So one, for to summarize in a commonest perspective for our viewers, what it is people they have people, any person, guy, girl, whatever, they have a sexual attraction. The theory is everybody has a inherent sexual attraction to their opposite sex parents. Have I summarized it correctly, Jay?
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.
That's it. So that's it. So now that's that's insane, right? Chin,
Yeah.
do you have sexual attractions toward your mother?
No, I feel weird about it, so I don't know.
You sure, Chin? Freud thinks you did.
This is that's why I guess this is super controversial and not so accepted.
Maybe you've repressed your feelings, Chin.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Society, maybe super ego and society has made me think that way.
Right, right. So I don't know. It's controversial, and I don't think now. See, here's the thing about repressed, right? They say it's unconscious. So how do we tell if something's repressed unconscious or pre-conscious unconscious? You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean it, and I know it's bizarre, but I've actually mentally I try these experiments, and whoa, you get very disgusted quite quickly, and it becomes
Exactly.
repulsive.
For sure. For sure.
That's right. In fact, we've talked about. I've experimented these things also with homosexuality and seeing me being a heterosexual.
Right.
I just wanted to see if, because people always make these claims of repressive thoughts, and your disgust is stemming from that repression and not from disgust.
Yeah.
So I try to experiment these things. But so that is it, viewers. And if that's a shock to you, but this was a well accepted theory, and it might have some relevance, and it might have some. It's definitely true of some people, because there are a lot of relationships that are studied on Reddit. We've seen EMA as well. I'm sure you've seen it too, Chintan, where they have an interview with guys who have sexual relationships with their mothers, right?
And also, like now that you tell me, like I think incest. Not no, it's not incest. One, it's
Yes,
step.
incest too. It is
No, no,
incest,
it is
but not
incest. I'm no.
sibling.
I was thinking of these popular porn videos where they are just they those are I think more about like stepmoms and stepdads and everything. So
All right, no,
stepdaughters,
that's
stepsons.
different though.
That's
That's
different.
that,
Yeah,
that.
yeah, that's different. That's different. Yeah,
Well, I guess it's different because how much of it is a sexual attraction in the physical sense, and how much of it is a
genetic or
psychological
whatever,
sense.
right?
Are
Yeah,
you sexually attracted to the motherliness of the person, or to the
or like
to
genetically you're saying, right?
right, right, or the physical attributes, like because she
Right,
looks pretty.
right.
I don't know. So it's interesting. I haven't explored this, but we should actually do a thing just on sex, and the details and
No,
the weird experiments on it. So that brings me to an important point, though. For all the controversy and claims of quackery Freud has done, this is one of the things I was leaning to when I said that he started a new perspective in the field. The importance of sex in our psychological thought, and not just sex. As we'll move on to the next topic, if you want, we can do it simultaneously. Something very closely related to the Oedipus complex is the penis envy, right?
right. Yeah,
And this is what Freud was trying to express to the people, in my opinion, for my understanding, and trying to make popular the idea that sexual organs, sexology, I guess, sexuality was all very integral to our psychological development and our character, our personality, society's character and personality, society's behavior, and the lot. And it was such a I guess repressed, to use his own words, idea in in this religious, in the background of the religious and the then scholarship, which was again significantly influenced by religion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Isn't that huge? Even our childhood, right? No, you had a more colorful childhood, but at least across me,
Okay.
I've been more traditionally grown that way, right? And
What
maybe
to?
that's what
Okay.
molded my thinking, right?
Yeah.
If you just think about ourselves, how I don't know, our what's a shyness towards sex, if, to put it simply.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I don't know if it would. Are you saying at that time it was even more conservative or whatever? Are you saying that, or
During Freud's time,
yeah, Freud's time?
I'm almost certain it was.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I'm not. I mean, I have no proper evidence, but my impression is yes, it was because yeah, it was more religious. Even going by the TV show, assuming
Yeah.
it was at least a little accurate. There's a lot of orthodoxy, right,
Yeah.
between psychologists, and
Yeah.
they leaned on psychology, especially the social sciences, leaned on religion to a large extent.
Yeah. I mean, the
I
religion
mean,
part for sure. But I'm
yeah,
thinking
that
about the tabooness and the shyness and everything.
yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's again related to religion
I
only.
can't
Makes sense.
imagine like the whole idea of monogamy. Like I guess that's the kind of I could imagine people naturally wanting to have sex with multiple partners, and there's an instinct for it. There might be a counter super ego, to use his framework. I don't know, but yeah, again, hard to say if it was repressed, but it's just nonetheless it's so relevant, the sexual aspects of it, and right, it's also, yeah, it's as relevant as your hunger or food, or yeah, I guess it's a natural instinct and you require it maybe to
Yeah.
some extent, or need to think about these things. And right, so what's penis envy? Right, what's that? Give us
No,
a
I mean this I guess is probably the most controversial. Like if I had to guess, probably the most controversial thing that he's come up with. I
es-
guess
especially in today's days,
today's day,
considering today, yeah,
exactly today's
landscape.
day. I mean,
Go on, go on.
2020. So
Right.
I mean this I guess it just says that.
Wait. You're telling me there's something more controversial than him claiming that you and me have sexual attraction towards our mothers?
I mean that I guess is both ways. This one is one way. So all about
Right.
equality 2020. So
Right. Yeah.
so that's why I'm saying
Feminist aware.
this might be more controversial, and because
Go on.
in this it's mainly about the females being like
Right.
according to this I mean he says that the like females like they go through some kind of anxiety that because they don't have a penis, they when they find out that like I guess males and men have penis, they envy that they don't have one, I guess.
Right.
So
Psychologically, right? They I guess it's a realization. They don't have a penis. I don't know. Maybe they've been looking at guys all their life. Their penis. I don't know. Their parents or something. I don't know.
yeah.
Somehow they realize that they don't have penis. Maybe, and they knew that guys had it, right? That would be a presumption.
Yeah,
I'm
I
assuming.
mean, after they know, probably only
Right.
then.
Right. So as absurd as it sounds,
Yeah,
like again we
this
talk,
is for sure. I think we also agree that it's pretty absurd. I think. I
it's absurd, and I agree to some extent. I don't think it's that absurd actually. In retrospect,
don't know. Right.
I'll tell you why. One is okay. It's sexist. A woman. I was looking at the same Wikipedia. I think a woman came out with a
Mm-hmm.
counter argument, and it has to do with what womb envy, where we're envious of the fact that we can't give birth to children, or something like along those lines, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's a counter argument. But I'll tell you what this did make me think of relevance. That uh, sexual organs have a huge part, right? Today's even current day psychology has to do with sexes, different sexes, cis sexuality. It has to do with transgender movements and a lot of these things, right?
Right.
So I can imagine some significant psychological impacts on a woman, maybe not on at least some, let's say, where the lack or the presence of a penis could trigger some emotions. Even a guys likewise,
Yeah. Yeah.
all across the board, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that.
I mean,
That's huge. It's a huge discovery, wouldn't you say?
yeah. I guess I can see that too.
Yeah, he's established at least that our sexual organ is significant in our psychological development.
Yeah, but didn't he like mainly emphasize that females are the ones who who file
Right,
that.
right.
That
So
was, I
that
guess.
there's a controversy. That might be true. It's controversial, and it probably has to do with his superego,
Right.
the nature of his times, how society in general was a lot more sexist,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like
So
like
misogynistic to be specific,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
Like I
so
guess like him mainly considering all these sexual stuff. On the contrary, I think, as we were discussing yesterday, that
right,
if it was today's world, I think we would have said it was pretty narrow
yeah,
considerations,
right,
right? He's just
right,
considering for psychology mainly, like
for
psychoanalysis
sure,
analysis and
for sure,
psychology. It's
for
mainly
sure,
just considering sexual stuff and
right,
organs and stuff like that, I
and
guess,
right,
because it
and
has like
go
a
on, go on.
much larger aspect to it, right? Like psychology
Of
itself.
course, 100%, 100%. You're right.
Yeah.
And to add to your point, that another thing they mentioned, I don't know if it's on this page or another page. There wasn't a lot of experiments conducted on these theories. These are very theoretical.
Right.
He didn't conduct enough interviews, and probably none,
Yeah.
to establish these theories. So, so that makes it a lot less credible, a lot less credible. And probably why they've been disproven. I think in the contemporary psychology of the day of today, it's I don't know if these theories are valid anymore, but it's a huge gateway, and psychology changes so much. Like, the classic example being homosexuality, how it was considered a mental condition, and today it's considered a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
So years from now, a lot of our things today will be considered absurd. Like, who knows if the transgenders and the the pansexuals have their way, maybe gender would be considered such an oppressive, insane idea. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's a possibility. We don't know.
Like, if you breaking up some homosexuality reminds me of this Reddit link that I Reddit
Oh,
post that I found where Freud writes a letter to like someone, like a mom, someone's mom who.
wait. This is a very interesting subreddit. What is the subreddit first
So
before
yeah, I
that?
mean the subreddit, it's called Psychoanalysis. It's
Interesting.
slash
Looks,
psychoanalysis. It
it's quite
seems
active, no?
it's
Unusually active.
it seems to
Unexpected.
be like pretty. So it seems like there are not many people in it, but it seems like
Okay.
pretty. It seems pretty active, and the discussion
Super.
seemed very nice, even though the number of comments and all are less. But
Awesome.
it seems like there is good discussions, and even though it's a smaller community,
Right.
it's one of those better communities with
Right.
good discussions and good posts and everything.
Right.
So
Right. So you were saying something,
yeah,
post.
so
Sorry.
that yeah, this there was this letter that he wrote to a homosexual person's
Interesting.
mother,
If it's
where
short, let's read it.
I don't remember how short it is.
If it's not, maybe I could just summarize it.
I mean, yeah, it's this big. I mean, we could read it. I guess
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah. Sure.
you want to read it.
Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
Dear sir, I'm willing to give you information to the best of my knowledge. Who? Wait. What's the context? Who's writing to
So
who?
this Freud is writing this to. I thought it was to.
Let's read that too. What's the backstory?
This is not the famous letter to the mother of homosexual man. Okay, this is not the mom letter. This is another one, but this is still on homosexuality. The letter.
What? Freud replies to a man clearly troubled by his sexual constitution, who had entered a relationship with a younger lover. The envelope was marked with words: "This letter should not be opened, but should be burnt unopened." Wow,
Because homosexuality was like super tabooed at that
right?
time, right? You
It was
could be
a
punished and
sin. Yeah,
everything. Yeah, like you could just
you
be
would be
killed. I
probably
think.
killed,
Yeah,
possibly killed.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But in
Let's go.
this, yeah, I mean, you could just read it, I guess.
Right. Dear sir, I'm willing to give you information to the best of my knowledge. I cannot agree with you when you call homosexuality a vice or a crime. Controversial. It is neither of the two. Whatever the legal codes of various countries might imply, but it is certainly a disadvantageous predisposition, and efforts to overcome it are justified, if only they succeeded as easily. Psychoanalysis has been of assistance in rare cases. In numerous others, it has strengthened a currently existing disposition to the point that the person in question can live bisexually. Interesting. In most cases, it fails to influence the abnormal inclination. Since such a treatment is lengthy and expensive, you probably have nothing to expect from this direction. if I understand that correctly, he's saying psychoanalysis is ineffective, right?
Yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
initially said like
Images.
few cases maybe, but otherwise
Right.
it has mainly even gone in the opposite direction.
Okay. This case is perhaps different for your friend. Since he is much younger, his decision may not be definitive, and you are taking on a certain responsibility if you create experiences which confirm him in his homosexuality. Advice about this will not achieve anything. You must decide between the two, which impulse is strongest. The case of homosexuality in today's society is not as hopeless as it seems to you. In every country, there are a number of individuals who, although they are outside the norm, in this one instance prove themselves to be valid in many others, distinguishing themselves by outstanding achievements. It is also well known that some of the greatest personalities of the past were homosexual. Even more frequent in the case that men follow one sexual direction during a certain period of their lives and later exchange it for the other, or that they remain susceptible to both sexes, that is bisexual, throughout their lives. Finally, one cannot overlook the fact that certain degree of inclination towards a homosexual object choice is part of the constitution of the so-called normal man. Instead of advice, I place these clarifications at your disposal. Yours faithfully, Professor Freud. Ah, I see your hesitance to accept when I
Exactly,
said that. Right, right. I see why
exactly.
you had hesitance. This is surprising. I didn't know. I wouldn't have expected this.
That's
It's
what
awesome.
you could say. He was kind of ahead of his time, I guess. But
He was ahead of his time.
yeah,
What I guess,
yeah,
definitely. If there's any truth to this letter, he was ahead of his time.
yeah, yeah,
It's brilliant.
yeah,
That's insane. That's insane.
yeah.
And yeah, but yeah. So there was this probably this underground movement, which because he's saying it's prevalent in a lot of people. So
Yep,
I guess there's always a movement in support of homosexuality. But
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
It's crazy. It took so long. I think it was in 2005. I think that WHO removed it. I don't know, but that's how I remember it.
Right, right.
Maybe you can Google it. You want to Google it? When was homosexuality removed by WHO? Something like that.
I mean, is it WHO who did it? Who did
I
it?
think it was. I mean, they're the major one. I think so. That's how I heard the story. This is only in
In
1977 removed
1973.
homosexuality, which was in 1990. There you go. So okay, it's not that bad. I said 2005, but still.
Oh, okay. So